we got a pretty good group here to go ahead and get started. So and I'm gonna try to end like I always promise around 8:30. So last week, for those of you who were able to make it, um, I was supposed to be here and be a part of that whole introducing yourself thing. We had that emergency come up at church. So if any of you guys are a part of the emails that come out from the church and school, you know more of what I'm referring to. So if you don't get the church email, you should subscribe to that. It's the week at a glance, and you can get all the info and the scheduling. But I'm assuming since all you guys are getting the emails for this, you're probably, we just like took the liberty to sign you up for the annoying congregational blast. So yeah, I got pulled into formulating our congregation's response to that unfortunate situation. So today, very, very briefly, I'll introduce myself since I wasn't able to be a part of that last week. So I'm Seth Clemmer. I'm from Mississippi originally. Grew up Southern Baptist / Lutheran, and which forced me to kind of figure out like why. My mom is still Baptist and my dad's Lutheran, and I was always thinking through like, why are we different? What are the differences between us? Does it matter? I went to a Baptist high school and a Baptist college for my first year of college. And then I kind of found a passion for talking about theology and explaining it to people and actually seeing the differences between some of my friends in other church bodies and seeing the difference that the gospel, the joy of the gospel had in my life, and kind of the burden of the overbearing burden of the law had in some of my friends' lives. It was just intriguing for me. So I pursued the seminary. I went to seminary in Indiana, and then did a vicarage year in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then off to my first parish was in Estes Park, Colorado, on top of the Continental Divide, which was nice because I specifically asked them at the seminary, you can send me anywhere in the country, just not where it's cold. I don't like cold weather. I'm from Mississippi. And they put me on top of a mountain in Colorado. So got the opposite of what I wanted. Served there for about 5 years, and then was called here in 2015 as serving as the youth and family pastor. And then recently, about a few months ago, they made me senior pastor. So serving here. So that's me in a nutshell. And so today, what I want to talk about, at least what our schedule is to talk about, is really the authority of the Bible. And it's trying to think of the best way to drive into this. Have you ever like been driving along, like maybe on your way to church back when you used to go to church in person, or just driving to the grocery store and you pass like a million different churches and they seem to be similar. They have the similar design and they're saying maybe similar stuff on the billboards, and you're like, what's the difference between these guys? And does it matter? And then like maybe the same day you turn on the news and you see like, or you drive through downtown Naperville, right there where St. Peter and Paul is. You got this like uber conservative Catholic church, which holds certain social positions on issues. And then literally right across the street is a Methodist church that's got the rainbow flags, and they're pushing like the opposite of all the issues. You're like, they're both Christian. How are they able to hold such contradictory positions? And what is the tolerance within Christianity of differences of opinion on these issues? So a lot of that's going to come up over the course of this class in the coming weeks. But today I want to start with really the ground level of this conversation is the authority of the Bible, the scriptures. So I'm going to share my screen. I try to do a presentation to make it a little bit more engaging for you guys. All right. So when we drive into the conversation about religion in general, I know many of you guys that you shared all your stories last week. A lot of you guys are coming from Lutheran background already. Some evangelicals, Catholics, some Methodists, I believe, and I can't remember if did I miss any? Episcopalian, I think, Sarah. So those are denominations within Christianity. But when you think about all the, not just denominations, but the religions that are religions that are confessed across the world, but whether it be Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, or no religion, or what would motivate someone to choose a particular religion? It's a conversation to make Anne stay awake on the couch there.
Because it's what they're raised with.
Yeah, so that's I think a really good natural place to start. Where I like to go is because it's true. And what I want to do is stop the video because people are trying to get onto this thing and I can't let people into the class and have this screen on at the same time. See what I did? I try to be all high tech with my.
There we go.
That's what I get. So you guys can see me still or no?
Yes.
All right. So they're raised with a particular religion. So whether they're born in a certain place, their parents raised them a certain way, and it gave them a certain worldview. And so we would say, okay, we're Christian, and we're only Christian because we happen to be born in a certain place at a certain time under certain parents. And maybe some people happen to be born Christian, and then they might change religions. And why might someone change a religion? So they're raised maybe in one way according to the way their parents raised them, but why would someone then go and change a religion?
They get married?
Yeah, they get married. Yeah.
Another relationship? Or?
Yeah, so they meet somebody who holds a different opinion, and so these different religions, or even different denominations, they're all like, some of them are very, very different. And so a person is having to really question the fundamentals of a lot of things to go into a different religion. And today we see it in our culture, people kind of jumping from religion to religion, or from religion to no religion. And really, I think we see a lot of people just say, it doesn't matter. I don't need to be a part of any religion at all. So what we as the Christian church, we're going to insert ourselves into this conversation with asserting truth. So we're saying, whether or not you were raised a particular religion, whether or not you guys were raised Christian or not, the Christian claim is that we're holding a true position. Like it's a historical truth. There's a historical fact. So our religion is based on a historical claim that not only God created the world, but that Jesus entered into this world's history and died on the cross at a certain date in history and rose again from the dead. And we're saying that that's true. And because that's true, then everything that Jesus was teaching is also true. And it's all this coherent worldview of not only Jesus rising from the dead, but all the laws, let's say, that go along with it, like thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, as the 10 Commandments. The concept of God having created the world, right? So all of that goes together with this claim that we're saying we're Christian, not because my wife is Christian or because my parents raised me to be Christian. That might have been the case early on. Maybe I was Christian because my parents raised me to be Christian, or I married a Christian bride. But ultimately, the Christian claim is, I'm not Christian because it works for me. It feels good. I like the people that I'm with. You can say that about a lot of different things, including like going to a football game. Like, I like the people there and they have a similar opinion as me. But the Christian claim is that we actually believe in this historical truth, a historical reality. And we're claiming that to be the case at a time when it's very unpopular. So try to get off of this thing again, make sure no one's trying to get in. Yeah. Today we live at a time that's full of this idea called Post-Modernism as a philosophy, or actually we're a little bit beyond Post-Modernism, some would argue. But it's a concept that all of you guys have noticed, and I can't see you because I got this screen share on my screen. So if you're nodding your heads or something, but the idea of postmodernism is questioning any kind of truth that is objective. That is, that anyone can be able to say something is absolutely right or wrong. To use my religion example, to be able to say that there is a religion that's absolutely true. And right now, by the way, I'll make a distinction between religion and denomination. So religions would be Christianity, Buddhism, Hindu. And within Christianity, you've got Lutheranism, Catholicism, Episcopalianism, and so forth. So obviously, everybody within those different denominations is going to claim that they're true as well. But right now, I'm just looking at the Christian point, where the Christians are claiming that there is a absolute truth. And that is drawing a line in the sand in today's culture that's very offensive, because as you're driving through and you see various different, I think I got a picture here, various bumper stickers. You got that coexist bumper sticker, most popularly found on Priuses, or Prii, which I believe is a plural of Prius. Which is kind of saying that all religions are the same. They all just need to get along, and they're equally unprovable or unverifiable, and none of them are really based on any kind of truth. You just have to pick the one that works best for you. The picture below it with the shirt about no homophobia, no violence, no racism, no sexism, yes to kindness, peace, equality, and love. Well, the general idea behind the shirt is actually a spirit of, like, it would seem to be good. Like, obviously we'd say racism is bad, and homophobia and violence they're all sexism. These are bad things. And we could all say generically that love is good and peace is good. The problem is, how do you define love? How do you define peace? So when you start digging a little bit deeper on, like, we'll pick out like kindness and love, for example. So from the Christian standpoint, if someone's there having a baby murdered in a woman's womb, and I'm saying, no, please don't kill the baby. Have the baby. We'll help you raise the baby. You can give the baby up for adoption, but just please don't murder the baby. So here I am trying to show love, and this would be accused of toward me as hate, right? So if we don't have any kind of standard of truth, then you can't say anything is loving. You can't say anything is actually violent. You have to have some kind of a norm. And so these other signs are common in well, I think the Black Lives Matter one is obviously everywhere. The hate has no home here is unique to Chicago, but that idea is that we're just welcoming of all people, and we're all loving. And so whenever you draw a line in the sand and say that there's something is right or wrong, especially wrong, if you say something's wrong, then you are being hateful. And so it's an offensive sign, even though it's there's a heart on it. And then the Black Lives Matter one is making claims as well. Love is love. Kindness is everything. So again, what are you defining as love? What are you defining as kindness? And if you don't have the scriptures, for us as Christians, we're able to say the Bible is there defining love for us and defining kindness and what that looks like. If you don't have the Bible, something else is going to determine those definitions for you. Something else has to determine what is love. Something else has to determine what is kindness. So back to the previous slide. How can we know, is there an objective truth? Is kind of this open question in today's culture. So we're actually making an assertion that there is an objective truth that's verifiable, that we can, Jesus' resurrection, but also that Christianity is true and the claims of the Bible are true. And now we have to be able to defend that, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. Can we know anything for sure? I had a conversation with a guy at Starbucks a couple of years ago who is, we kind of went going back and forth. He's an atheist guy, and I was trying to make these claims about the historicity of Jesus and the reliability of the Bible and so forth. And for him, he was like, well, we don't even know if we're real, kind of doubting that we're actually sitting in a Starbucks and drinking coffee. And so all of reality in his mind was this construct. So we're fighting against those kind of mindsets. How do we know what or who we can believe and trust? So going back to the example earlier, like I'm only Christian because my parents raised me to be Christian. And if we don't know why we're Christian, if I'm only Christian because I trusted my parents, then I go off to college, and since I haven't actually thought about that, then that faith is easily overturned. And I see it with our youth, unfortunately, quite often, where they go to college and they sniff into some, they get hit by a few intelligent atheist arguments that they don't really have a defense for, and it rocks their faith, because they were only Christian because their parents were Christian and they believed their parents, or they didn't believe their parents, they just were forced to go to church. So now, especially as adults, as you guys are walking through this class, you've lived your life, whether you've been going to church or haven't been going to church as often as you'd like, or maybe you're coming from a different Christian church body. This issue is huge in today's culture, and it really lies behind a lot of the major social problems that we're seeing, the social unrest from the riots on the streets, a lot of the political conversation. A lot of it's because you have people who are operating with different norms of what is true and what defines good, what defines love. And so you might have the Christians defining love in a certain way according to the scriptures, and you have other people equally trying to be loving, but they're using a different definition. And the last, doesn't matter what you believe. Well, what do you guys think? Does it ultimately matter what you believe about, we'll say, does it matter what you believe about the definition of goodness, or even about God? Does it matter?
Two things. One, we can't see yours, or at least I'm not seeing your slides. I don't know if you were trying to share or not. And then, as to answer your question.
Oh, Sarah, am I cutting you off? So you let me talk that entire time without a slide being.
Well, I chatted you, but I didn't know if you saw it. So.
You guys, come on. You're all equally guilty.
Almost.
I chatted. I sent a chat.
So I can't see.
Text as well.
You guys got to
stop explaining.
So the little chat, I see these chats now. I can't even see you guys when I have this screen, when I have my slides up. Everybody goes black and I can't see. At least I guess you could hear me.
We could totally hear you.
And you couldn't see anything but black screen?
We're seeing you. We can see you speaking.
And it's all good.
Yeah, we knew what you were talking about. We could visualize everything. You were very descriptive.
Well, Sarah, thanks for being the one to chime in. Sarah gets the award of the night.
Woo-woo.
Send you a free book.
Well, all right then.
Something really boring off my shelf.
Fantastic. I'll display it proudly.
So you know what? Let me see. No, Sarah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you were going to say about goodness. I think that there's something to be said, by believing in God and by being good, is being an example for what that looks like. So while being a Christian, to each individual Christian, depending on your denomination, may look different, in my opinion, being good and following what God has told us to do through our actions and our words are providing that goodness to the world around us.
So yeah, so there's a temporary consequence of what we hold to be good. So that, like you just said, because it's good for our neighbor ultimately. So the world around us benefits from me being good and being loving. So there's that. That's obviously, that becomes problematic. Let's say if I'm a Muslim person, and I actually believe that it would be good. It's defined as good for me to let's say abuse my wife. A terrible thing to say out loud.
Right.
They define that as good. And so when you have this floating definition of good, then kind of anything goes. So we're for us as Christians, it is huge that we know what it means to be good, so we can actually love our neighbor in a good way. So there's a temporary benefit and consequence of goodness and knowing the standard of goodness, but there's also, and we would say this as Christians, the eternal consequences of our beliefs. So we would actually hold that there is a heaven and hell. There is a reality of an afterlife, and that impacts our lives now, knowing that salvation, giving us hope in the face of trial, right? But if you've got a culture that if you've got various different groups of people that are operating with different definitions of good, at least for me, it brings a lot of clarity when I look at the world and you see a lot of confusion and a lot of angry people, and everyone's kind of holding that they're right. It's because everybody's operating with different standards of truth, and some without any standard of truth, which, by the way, I think I mentioned this way in my last newsletter article in the Herald, the left, if you will, the political left, seems to be always creeping further and further to the left, because there's really no reason not to. There's no standard that's holding them back. There's no norming standard of good and evil. Instead, what's determined? What defines good? Well, let's just talk about that. What is the determining factor for what is good and evil for the general progressive left and the political conversation?
Whatever is popular at the moment, it seems.
Whatever feels right.
Yeah, so society defines the good, and so there has to be a good, and I think you're right on. So it's whatever the society is defining good in the moment. So whatever's popular to hold, that's the new good. And unfortunately, that's always shifting, and it's always seems to be running further to the left, or at least more like. For us as if you're a Bible believing Christian, it's increasingly baffling, because we're holding on. We'd say we're conservatives in the sense that we are conserving a truth. So we're holding on to an unchanging rock, and everybody else is just drifting. And yet everyone's saying we're all trying to be good and loving, and yet there's head bashing. All right. I'm going to share my screen now, Sarah, and you're the official, you're like the permanent person to tell me if my screen.
I will tell you, I promise. It has started. Well done.
All right. Did you see these pictures when I was talking about them?
No.
You did.
No, but we can visualize them.
You guys are terrible. All right. Well, now that makes a lot more sense when no one was talking. Well, I won't belabor this, because we're going to be running out of time really soon here. I've kind of got slides for the next couple weeks, as we're going to be talking about this for about the next 2 or 3 weeks. So now we're going to move from, we talked about there being an objective truth at all, to now, okay, we're claiming that there's an objectively true religion, and we're saying that it is Christianity. It is the God that we're holding on to. So if there is a God, how would we even know about him? So historically, the Christian argument is, well, we know about him from a natural knowledge and a revealed knowledge. So the natural knowledge of God is you can go to the Grand Canyon and look out and be like, wow, this is pretty impressive. Or the complexity of the human eye, or other really complex scientific things that even some formerly evolutionary biologists could look at and say, you know what? There's no way that this could have evolved. So there's natural revelation of the existence of God. Also, our conscience, as we found out in the book of Romans, that sense of right and wrong that's innate to all humans, that even a total atheist with seemingly no moral compass, there's a point at which they would stop, like somebody from hitting a baby, or just whatever terribly thing that you might be able to imagine. That's the conscience that we all have. But that knowledge of God is going to be limited, because it can't ultimately tell us about God's mercy, only about God's general existence or his power, which is ultimately a scary thing, because God's power is behind hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes. So that's why the revealed knowledge of God is important. This next point is that God actually entered this world and told us about himself. That's how we know about God. So we're not limited to just looking out at the skies and trying to use our feelings and feel our way to God, but rather God has revealed himself to us. Specifically, he revealed himself to people, both physically and other theophanies or burning bush, like to Moses and the like. And then people actually spread that word to others. People spread to others is a phrase that is especially unpopular to say during COVID. I didn't think about that when I wrote that, but God revealed himself to people. People spread that message to others, and it was eventually written down into the Bible. So, lastly, here, and maybe the Bible, as we know, is composed of the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is written by the prophets primarily, and written mostly in Hebrew, and the New Testament is written by the apostles and mostly in Greek. And so those compose the Bible. Now, I mention this because some of you guys are like, I've known this since I was like 10 years old, blah, blah, blah. But what's increasingly important, what I'm finding troubling, is that the atheist arguments from the world are actually attacking the Bible itself. And so as the Christians in the world today, if we don't know why we believe what we believe and why even how we think about the Bible, is it reliable? Can we trust it? So next week, about a minute here, and so I'm gonna stop here. But we're actually gonna get to, hopefully next week, the reliability of the Bible itself. So not just, so now we just talked a little bit about objective truth today. Next week, we're gonna get to the Bible itself. And actually, I want you to actually think about some of these troubling things, like the Bible why is the Bible true? Why can you trust the Bible? Is it because your parents told you that it was true back when you were a little kid and you blindly believe it now? Well, that was the same about Santa Claus, maybe, but that doesn't mean Santa Claus is true. And so as soon as you start to tangle horns with an atheist who tries to discredit the Bible, this can rock a Christian world. So it's healthy for us to actually look at the Bible critically and say, why is it that I'm willing to stake my eternal life on this book? Why is it that I'm actually shaping my moral life? And for those of you with kids in the school, that you're saying, okay, I wanted to raise my kid in the Christian faith. Why are you willing to do that? Especially if this whole thing is made up by a bunch of male chauvinists in the 4th century who are trying to control people, which is an argument of the feminist left, right? So that's an issue we're going to look at. If you guys get a chance or you're bored or something, I might send you guys some videos on this pertinent topic. I'll post on the website under the adult instruction class, like these videos here. When I remember to push record, they'll show up on the schedule on the new member class schedule page. You can click on like former videos, or the schedule will have videos and also links to pertinent YouTube. We're at 8:30, so real quick, are there any? We didn't get into talk about too much, but any thoughts or questions about that? I know I threw a lot of issues at you. I was hoping to talk more. I apologize. All right. Well, next week we'll talk about specifically, can the Bible be trusted? And yeah, we'll kind of go through some basic atheist arguments. Ultimately, what we're working toward is the Bible as the objective norm and authority for what we believe as Christians, and ultimately also as Lutherans, and then start to unfold that over the rest of this class. Okay. There's no other comments or questions. You stuck with me for 30 minutes, most of which I didn't know that I wasn't sharing screen. So thanks. Shout out to Sarah for being helpful. And if you have any lingering questions, shoot me an email, and I'll respond to it next week. Thanks for being patient, guys. Have a good evening. God bless.
Thanks. Good night.